Welcome back to DIVEBOMB IndyCar Podcast, and as the build-up to St. Petersburg continues now at the conclusion of Content Days, we invite back one of our very familiar guests of the show for his annual appearance on the podcast, Tom Gaymor, Sky Sports IndyCar commentator. Welcome back. It's great to have you on. How have you been, Tom?
Yeah, good. I've had a haircut today, so hopefully I look younger than last year. And that would be the ideal. But yeah, it's great to be back, and do you know what? I'm just going to say praise or direct praise your way, because it's great to see the work that you do and it paying off as well. You know, really recognizable in terms of the impact that you've made with the global audience, the UK audience, promoting IndyCar, covering IndyCar, and the work that you put in. So yeah, it's you're an inspiration to us all. So it's a pleasure to be alongside you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks very much, Tom. And as we say to our listeners, we enjoy doing this as much as I hope you all enjoyed listening to what we do. And this is a very small part, and we thoroughly enjoy it. And hopefully our enjoyment of the series really reflects on the rest of you. But Tom, I just wanted to start off about podcasting. We're long-time podcasters, but you are now a podcaster yourself in the IndyCar off season. So to those listeners out there who don't know, just tell us a little bit about your podcast ventures this off season.
Yeah, I'm super young and trendy, and joined the podcast ranks, and it's been pretty good fun. So I've teamed up with Hollywood Harvey, and we just kind of put a sort of international and European lens across some of the goings on in IndyCar. We've obviously been doing it over the off season, which is a cracking time to launch a podcast, just as everyone's switching off from the season. But we've enjoyed it, and you know, we've had a few hiccups, and obviously growth is challenging at the beginning. But you know, IndyCar Live is a wonderful platform. They are the ones that have endorsed us to do the podcast, and you know, we're really grateful to them and everyone at IndyCar Live. And you know, we're hoping this year to direct as much traffic to IndyCar Live as we possibly can, and sit on some of the other IndyCar platforms socially as the year goes on. So it's been good fun, and hopefully it'll continue to build. We're not going to be a rival. We're not going to be rivals. It's all, you know, it's all going to play out okay. There's enough cake to go around, so I'm sure we'll share the audience.
It's all amicable. How did it come about? And like, did you have a relationship with Jack before you kind of ventured into?
Yeah, so obviously I've known Jack for a long time, way back when he was doing Formula 3 in Carlin, or at Carlin. And you know, we talk a lot, and we've always kind of harbored the idea, but it's about being timely and sort of, I'm sounding all corporate here, organically growing the opportunity. and so we just didn't know how to do it or when would be the right time. And then we got talking with IndyCar Live, and obviously, you know, I've been speaking to him through his debut year at Fox, giving him bits of advice and being a sounding board and listening to him. And, you know, it just goes well with his offering. He's got one foot in the media and broadcast world now, one foot still in the car. And, you know, from his perspective, and also as a complete offering, you know, for sponsors and that kind of stuff that could potentially be working with him, it's a good opportunity for different people to get on board. So we're trying to grow that space as well.
Yeah, I can't quite believe there's now two separate IndyCar podcasts hosted by British people. I mean, imagine saying that a couple of years ago. But the name Stickers and Send It, how did that come around? Whose idea was it? And
that was my idea.
It was your idea. You take the credit for it.
It wasn't ChatGPT either, so I genuinely came up with that myself. And it's just playing light on the fact that we're two Brits and we're covering a US sport, and obviously the terminology and everything's completely different. So Stickers and Send It, you know, that's just not something that I grew up around when I was doing Formula 4 in the UK. You know, if I'd have said that at Mallory Park on a rainy, wet Wednesday morning testing, people would have looked at me a bit strangely. So yeah, I love their language, I love their terminology, and we just sort of we put a spin on that.
Would you say Jack's now an American Brit in his vocabulary, or does he still have the British vocabulary in his system?
When he talks about football, because he's involved with Lincoln City or Lincoln Town. I'm doing a disservice by not
City. I'll save your blushes.
So, but he's always talking about football. But I'm like, well, what are you talking about here? Soccer or football? But he's a massive football fan. So he's trying to weasel his way into the Fox ranks when it comes to NFL. He loves NFL. He knows everything about NFL. So when he's talking football, he does use all the right language and all the right terms. So he definitely sounds like he's from across the pond.
I think I said at the outset the podcast should have been called Snakes and Ladders or something, one of your catchphrases. Do you have a favourite one of those kind of catchphrases you use on the commentary?
Yes, definitely Snakes and Ladders. It is a game of snakes and ladders. You just can't get away from that. It just resonates around my mind every time I'm commentating on IndyCar. Especially when, Scott Dixon does wonderful things with his fuel mileage, or, whoever it is falls foul of the yellow.
We'll wait with bated breath for the first one of the year.
Get your bingo cards ready.
So if any viewers out there want to make a Tom Gaymor Sky Sports F1 bingo card for the season, please go ahead. You're very welcome. But we just want to reflect on kind of the 2025 season briefly. And obviously kind of the overwhelming storyline was the dominance of Alex Palou and how he kind of really swept the field. And we've seen his impressive championship seasons, but it really felt 2025 was another step up in performance. And obviously, Tom, you've been watching IndyCar for a very long time. How does kind of that season compare to some of the individual seasons that you've seen in IndyCar?
Yeah, I mean, it was a unique dominance, that's for sure, because he was pushing records that haven't been broken for a very, very, very long time, and in a different era of IndyCar. And, this era is different in the sense that it's never been more competitive than it is now. It's essentially a one-make championship. When you look at the chassis and the aerodynamics, of course, you've got different options and bolt-ons and various different configurations. But, it's only really the dampers and the engines that separate the teams. So to do what he did was phenomenal. And when you actually speak to the drivers, it's not just him. It's Barry Wanzer. Everyone talks about Mike Hall and this and that, but Barry Wanzer's really made a name for himself. And, he's up there now as one of the very best in history when it comes to calling races and making sure that everything runs faultlessly on that 10 stand. They do everything well. They turn up to every race. I think their slogan is, let's not beat ourselves. They just make the simple decisions, chip away at it. When they're not at the races, they will maximize a 5th or 4th place finish. The consistency word that we heard ringing across the content days is a legacy of Alex Palou, and he's either consistently winning or consistently at the front. And when we spoke to Scott Dixon on the Stickers and Send It podcast recently, he said it, because I put to him that the black tire myth, where he's great with the fuel mileage, but Palou is just on a different planet when it comes to the black tires. And he said it's deeper than that. It's just something every single area, whether or not it's braking, whether or not it's rotating the car, whether or not it's building the throttle. He's just so good in every single area. So that is a bit of a headache for everyone, because they really do have to go back to the drawing board. And now we're hearing Will Power talking about tuning the pit stops, Ed Carpenter Racing have a strength and conditioning coach. Everyone is just throwing the kitchen sink now to try and catch Alex Palou.
Do you kind of have any other big takeaways from the season? Any other things that stand out to you as like your big highlights from 25?
Do you know what? I felt Pato O'Ward was solid. We've always said with Pato, he's either on pole or around the pole, and he he has that mistake in it, but last year he didn't. He looked very balanced, very measured, chipped away at it, and we've talked about how good Palou was, but Pato was best of the rest. Now that's no consolidation to him. He wants to win. Arrow McLaren wants to win, but in the Ganassi stable, it's only really Palou that's doing what he was doing. So Pato to be best of the rest is a really good endorsement to where he is, where Arrow and McLaren are. And, I felt if you look at how things fell apart for Scott McLaughlin, for example, at Team Penske and various others, Joseph Newgarden, it was a difficult season for a lot of people because of the pressure that they were under, the unforced errors that Alex Palou was making people make because they were out of their comfort zone. But Pato didn't venture out of his comfort zone. He raised his ceiling and he looked very solid.
I think one really interesting thing about Pato is if you actually look at his points total in comparison to champion of previous years, I mean, he's right there.
Yeah.
But the fact Palou was still 200 points ahead really kind of emphasizes just how impressive the season actually was. Obviously, on the Sky side of things, there was a kind of a big change, especially in the US, where we had a new broadcaster go from NBC to Fox. So just from kind of a Sky perspective in the UK, does your relationship particularly change with how the broadcast works when you have a different broadcast? Did kind of much change on your end adapting to working with a new company in the States?
No, so the international broadcasters, and whether or not that's Sky or Germany or whatever the region, they do their deals directly with IndyCar. And so whoever the host broadcaster is in the US in terms of the championship, it doesn't make a difference to the international broadcasters. Where it does impact them is it's a new process, it's a new partner, there's new relationships, there's new ways of doing things. And we saw Fox change things ever so slightly with the warm-up, and initially things were very different with the breaks as well, not covering the breaks in practice and qualifying. So that was, gave us a bit of a headache in terms of, we weren't sighted on that until we got to St. Pete. And they had a huge uphill mountain to climb because they were taking on a championship and a way of working that was new to them. So I think they did a really good job. They were learning on the job, so they were airing their dirty washing in public initially. And so St. Pete and the outage at Thermal and this and that there were some real challenges, and just how the sort of IndyCar, the internal IndyCar team and Fox married themselves with graphics and how the international feed looked. There's a really small team that work on the international feed for IndyCar, so they've relied really heavily over the years with external support, and that relationship had to be built very, very quickly, and so we saw some of that play out as well. But I think everyone did a great job, and that was the hard bit, because the fans want the very best, they deserve the very best, they're paying to get the very best, and it's their sport and something they're really passionate about. And so when it's not quite right, they have every right to voice their opinion, but there's lots of people on the other end running around, well aware of the problem, trying desperately to solve it. And I think everyone is in a good space, and I think we'll continue to see Fox and the IndyCar products grow and grow in 2026.
And you're obviously very well versed in the TV realm. So I guess from that perspective, how do you assess Fox's first year, some of the differences to NBC, whether that be negatives or, I guess on the whole, really the positives of a relationship that seems to blossom throughout the year?
Yeah, I think a lot of it stems from there's a lack of testing in IndyCar, and that is a challenge for the broadcasters. So I'll give you an example. Formula One, they have tests like IndyCar do to a certain extent, but structured testing before the season starts. But a lot of that is to test the systems and to test the broadcast as well. So Sky will be running a full OB over the final set of test days, as will F1 TV as the world feed, just to test their systems, test the new technology, test where they're at. And Fox didn't get that opportunity, so they go straight to St. Pete, and it's really, really hard to try and work through some of the problems when it's a new product and a new environment. So I think they did a really good job. The outage at Thermal was basically just bad luck, but as we know, when you're under pressure, these things tend to happen. So that was that. And from my perspective at Sky, not much changed apart from we had one or two challenges. That the golf finishing late was one of them, because we went on air and I only found out that it was going to be a 17-minute fill or a 21-minute fill. I can't remember what it was. 30 seconds. So we were into the count to go on air. And then Neil came in my ears and said, "Oh, FYI, it's a 21-minute fill and we've only got pictures to sit on. So, keep talking," basically. So when you're planning for a 3-minute link and then suddenly you've got a 21-minute fill and everyone just thinks it's planned, it's seat of your pants. But that's live TV, and it's kind of why I like doing it as well.
How do you do that? Like, when that does happen and suddenly it's 7 times longer than the amount of time you expected, how do you kind of think on your feet, adapt? How do you generate things to talk about to fill that time?
Yeah, the first thing, and it's easy to say this, but not to panic. And that's taken not just my TV career, but also my motorsport career to get to that point. When I was younger, I used to worry too much about outcome, worry too much about what others thought of me. And that was when I was racing, and maybe I carried that into TV as well. I've become more process driven now. So I'm not relying on external gratification, although that's nice, but I make the one person I want to impress the most myself, and I focus more on process. So if I've prepared well and I've got a good process in place, the outcome will take care of itself. So I'm doing the Winter Olympics starting on Thursday. I don't know everything about the Winter Olympics, but if I know 3 things really well about each event and that kind of thing, then you start to build a process and a framework to talk around, and then you can start to trust that process, grow in confidence, and keep talking. I also do say, if you're going to say anything, make sure you believe it, because no one else will if you don't. So speak with conviction. Just
run on Hollywood Harvey himself. What kind of advice have you given him? You said that you guys had maybe spoken a little bit. So what advice did you give him? And generally, just what did you make of his progress through the year?
My first bit of advice was, don't worry about being good. Don't worry about being perfect. So as a professional athlete, he'll be well versed on feedback, on analysis, on being perfect, trying to improve. But unfortunately, sometimes that gets in the way of you expressing yourself, that gets in the way of you enjoying yourself. And if you don't express yourself well and you don't enjoy yourself, you don't really bring the broadcast to life. So I said that, and I said, always make sure you enjoy it, make sure you enjoy every second. And secondly, we just talked about the traffic that you get in your ears, because that's what was, when he was asking questions at the beginning and he sounded a bit reserved or like he was lumbering through the question a bit, it's basically the mind trying to compute and process what's going on. It's a bit like rubbing your head or rubbing your tummy and patting your head when there's loads of people talking to you and you've got to count, and then they're wondering who they're going to go to next, and should we go down to Georgia with that driver, should we go down there, and they're having that conversation in your ear, and you're like, shut up, I'm trying to ask the question here. And then you're halfway through your question and they start giving you a count to wrap up, and they're talking now, so you've got to try and and it's just so hard. So I just said, don't try and listen to everything. Pick words out that you need to hear that are relevant to you, and that's part and parcel of it. Is just being comfortable with letting that conversation, that through traffic, pass through your ears without actually landing anywhere. And that's really hard to start off with. When we have guests on the Indy 500 on the sofa or in the commentary box, the first thing they do is like, get rid of that noise. I cannot speak with that noise. And so, he just needed to work through that. But I love his grid walks, and, he's definitely making a name for himself by being himself.
Made for Hollywood. That's why it's got the nickname, I think. Definitely got a career in it, doesn't he? Looking on the British side of things, obviously IndyCar kind of still really is a niche. Motorsport in general is going, particularly F1, but this is something kind of Daly said to us, is, this many people watch F1. We all believe IndyCar's got a better product. How do you convert those viewers into watching IndyCar, for example? But just over the last kind of 12 months or so since we last caught up, kind of how are things generally looking in the UK, maybe viewership wise? And I know always know there's kind of quite a close community. Kind of, have you seen any growth in that?
Yeah, we've seen growth in the Sky IndyCar audience, and whether or not it if you break down the demographics, the diversity, the gender, that kind of stuff, we've seen growth in some really positive areas. I'm not going to lie, and everybody will know that if we piggyback off the back of F1, we see bigger numbers. There's no two ways about that. When we flow off the back of an F1 race, we see bigger numbers, and it's the same for the Indy 500. If we can flow off the back of an F1 event, it's really good for us, because people are aware of IndyCar. They're not always aware it's on, and that's a conversation to have with IndyCar, and that cross promotion, and looking at what the NFL does over here, and making sure that we can engage the European audience, because it's a wonderful motorsport fan base in this European hub, and they really value their motorsport and the spectacle, and IndyCar delivers that. It's so hard to predict, as we've seen with the league that I didn't win again. It's so hard to predict who's going to do well. I kept on nailing my colours to the Penske flag, and they let me down. But you just don't know, and that's not always the case with Formula One. So it's one of the reasons why I love IndyCar.
Yeah, so just to recap for anyone who doesn't remember, Tom came fourth this year, so middle of the pack. Only on countback though did you finish fourth, so it was almost fifth. But hey ho, you how many points did you? You scored 39. Archie was champion at 47. So
I was going to ask. I'd somehow forgotten that I was the champion. To be honest, such a prestigious award.
Can I just ask? Was Archie marking his own homework here?
No, it was me. To be fair,
was he filling in the answers at the end of the event?
I can't believe you don't trust me.
Oh look, I picked the winner again.
Archie is the only person in history, though, to actually ever claim a perfect podium. We've been doing this 2 seasons, I think, maybe 3.
Yeah,
so
2, I think.
So anyway, Tom, you're welcome to play again this year if you must, and maybe this year you'll have better fortunes than you have in the last 2. So we'll see what you can do. Let's briefly look towards 2026 though, and a home predict tournament's part of that. And one of the races you're going to have to guess for is the new IndyCar race at Washington, which was announced this week. So obviously, I know it's a divisive topic in the US, but if we're looking solely kind of an IndyCar perspective, this is a big opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah, I think obviously that there is a political discussion to be had around it, and I think that's not just in the US, that's globally, and I would be the first to say that it's not for me to influence or comment on other people's politics, but there is a discussion to be had. But in terms of IndyCar, it's a wonderful opportunity to be part of the 250th birthday in Washington, DC, around that part of town, with Fox growing the sport and the audience, and just putting IndyCar on the very top table. We saw the drivers' reactions, and people almost, because people just saw the opportunity from inside of IndyCar initially, it was just like, wow, that's huge news. But for me, I think it's pretty special. I definitely do think it's taken everyone by surprise. I love the fact that, again, we've got something new. You look at the growth this year. Phoenix back. You look at Markham obviously taking over from Toronto. You look at Arlington. Yeah, people will say we're not in Mexico, but let's just focus on what we do have, what we are doing. We're doing so much. Yeah, it'd be lovely to be in Mexico, and I hope that happens. But it's easy to focus on the things that you don't have, but celebrate what we do have, definitely. And I think the Fox relationship, the Fox investments, the partnership, it's definitely added to IndyCar and its ability to be able to land deals like we've just seen last week in Washington.
And it's funny, like, I feel like in this last week, it's kind of been forgotten. Like, Arlington's been promoted the hell out of very impressively for the last 18 months. So of those other 3 new races, I know obviously Phoenix is returning, but you've got Arlington, Phoenix, both very early in the season, and obviously Markham as well. Any that you're kind of particularly looking forward to covering? I know Arlington's kind of the real exciting one that looks like it's kind of breaking the mold of IndyCar street races and going more F1-like almost.
Yeah. Well, also you've got the tie-in of the other sports as well. And just with the news that's come out this afternoon with the promoter for Washington, DC, being the promoter of all the sports in Washington, really. And you're kind of seeing that at Arlington. And, the more IndyCar can piggyback off the success of other sports. I've talked about the impact it has with Formula One and IndyCar on Sky Sports F1, but the more IndyCar can piggyback off that relationship that Fox has with the other sports, with the big audiences, with the big fan bases, and kind of marry themselves into those spaces, it's only going to be a positive. There's so much to look forward to in that space heading into 2026.
And I guess just latching off actually something that you mentioned with obviously Fox doing that 1/3 investment in IndyCar, quite a nice way to kind of almost reaffirm their long-term trust. What were your thoughts on that and where that could ultimately lead the series as well?
Yeah, I think, Fox obviously carry a lot of weight and they've got a good budget and they're interested. They have a vented interest. You can see their passion shine through, that they want to make this work, and they're making subtle changes and they're using their weight and their budget to push the championship along together with the Penske Corp and what Roger's doing at the helm. So they're a huge asset to IndyCar without a shadow of a doubt. And you've got to use, in today's competitive space, you've got to use all your assets and all the might of your partners to really try and push through and shine in what is a really, really saturated space, the live sporting platform at the moment.
I guess we'll move on to some of the kind of driving side for next year. So obviously one of the big stories was Will Power. I guess what's your take on the Penske treatment? Obviously he wasn't allowed to start work, and obviously the fact that they only offered him a 1-year deal as well, and then ultimately what his prospects could be moving forward at Andretti. It's kind of pretty exciting seeing him somewhere else.
And Roger was the only one not to sign his plaque, but he has made a very big point of saying that it was just because Roger didn't get to the factory.
That was so funny. On content day, I think he interrupted another answer that he was giving to another question because it suddenly springs into his mind.
Yeah, and if you want the full details, they're on an article I released today on the DIVEBOMB website. If you want to hear the full story to Will Power's plaque saga, but he forgot to bring it to Daytona, which didn't help his cause.
Yeah. But it is an insight into the weight that Roger still plays in terms of being in people's mind. He's definitely the captain, and you want to stay on the right side of him. So he just clarified that it was an oversight, a little oversight, that Roger was the only one not to sign his plaque. But yeah, listen, I'm excited to see what Will can do at another team. I think he is as well. You genuinely get that sense that he's made this decision. He was offered a 1-year deal at Team Penske. He doesn't need the money, so he's not gone to Andretti because he wanted more than 1 year. He's gone there because he wanted a new challenge. And I think he's really looking forward to saying, oh, what about this? Or should we try this? Or I know this, or that's a good idea. Yeah, I've not heard of that. I think he's really reveling in that, in that space. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how he gets along, because he doesn't have too dissimilar a driving style to Colton. If you look at Will Power over the years, his success over one lap in qualifying doesn't happen by chance. So he can definitely get up on the wheel and drive it over one lap. And that's basically always been Colton's strength over the years. So yes, he's a bit older. I don't think he's lost really that much speed, if any. So I think he will be looking to, he's got a lot of poles at St. Pete. He will be looking to hit the ground running and try and excel in that Andretti car in the environments that we know they're quick. On the street track will be the place where he, you know, where he looks. And then going to Phoenix, where he knows it, where he can try and drive the Andretti car forward. They're actually much better than they were when the oval screen came in. Since the hybrids come in, for whatever reason, it's changed the balance a bit again. And actually, it's brought the Andretti back into the frame on the ovals, because before that they weren't great on the ovals. They're still not amazing, but I think with Power's knowledge and experience, it'll be interesting to see how they get on. And then, of course, little Dave, will he become Big Dave? He seems to be enjoying himself at Penske, and you know, he's mature. I liked his chat actually on the content days. He's definitely one of those guys, when he talks you listen, because he's entertainment.
Yeah, does a mean impression of his father apparently. So I haven't heard his father speak.
It was so good.
And I guess on the flip side of that kind of Power Malukas triangle, you have Colton Herta, obviously leaving IndyCar after being this prodigious young talent. And I don't know, how do you see kind of his move to F2, his pursuit of F1? Like, is it a risk? Is it kind of justified for him to be leaving IndyCar and to be pursuing this?
Do you know what? At first, you think, oh, crikey, that's a risk. But he's still in the TWG family. So in terms of, you know, I put my mature head on now, when you think mortgage, this, that, stability, you know, he's still in a good space. He's still in that TWG group. And obviously, you know, he will always have an opportunity back in IndyCar. If he turned around after a year or two and said, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm coming back to IndyCar, people would rip his arm off. Would he get the deal that he got the first time around? I don't know. He's a very, very well-paid IndyCar driver over the last few years. It's indicative of him as a racer. That's for sure. You know, he's not scared of anyone or anything. So it's indicative of him. The challenge is a big one. But I think he almost needed it, a bit like Will Power. You know, he needed this challenge, and he's got a great opportunity to try and follow through on that. But one thing with F2, you know, it's a very, very hard championship to shine in. The car and the team and the ethos of how you generate the grip, how, you know, the car works with the tires, that kind of stuff. It's very team dependent in terms of your driving style and where you are. So there's loads of things there for him to maybe get tripped up over. But I want him to do well. I think he's a great guy, and I think he's so talented. Will Power said that on the content days when he was looking through his data. He's like, wow, this guy can drive. When you watch the onboards. So, and I saw that right off. We've talked about it when I was at Carlin and he was doing MSA Formula with Lando. When you watch what he was capable of doing in certain conditions, no one could touch him. Everyone was like, okay, yeah, that's his data, but I can't do that. So it would be, you know, it'd be a real shame if that didn't shine through because of the nature of the championship and how team dependent it is, and also the reliability is still a bit of a question mark. So yeah, I want to see him do well. Yeah, I miss the IndyCar really well.
Yeah, no, he's a very unique driver in the way he drives and just presents himself. So he will be a big miss. But reflecting on IndyCar content days, I feel like there's kind of a general still head scratching from all the drivers at how Palou will be conquered across the course of a season. And he obviously still comes in as the favourite, considering he comes off the back of that very impressive season last year. So who's going to take the fight to him, do you think, if anybody?
I think a really good social media reel for you on DIVEBOMB would be, I think everyone said consistency. So just ribbon that up. Everyone going, consistency, because that was literally the word that came out. Like everyone was like, well, consistency.
Yeah, no, I said this, I think, on the day, like my brain, I was going to go to bed with like just like words going around my head. I need to improve on road courses. I need to improve in qualifying.
Yeah,
I need to be more consistent. It was so funny.
It was just that. So, but yeah, who can take the fight to Palou was the question. Yeah.
Yeah. $1 million question, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's the $1 million question. I don't think Palou's going to have the same season, and he's alluded to that, and that's nothing to do with Palou, Chip Ganassi, the 10 stand. It's just so hard to be in the right place at the right time with all the cards falling in the direction you want them to fall in without things going wrong. So, you know, he'll make his own luck. He always does. He's always in the right place at the right time. He will always be up there. Will he have 8 wins? I'm not sure, but he will certainly have a few. And then who's going to be the main player? Obviously, Pato, I think, is a serious contender, but I really do think Christian Lundgaard is as well. I genuinely think once he gets his head around the ovals, he will be very, very good. So, and I kind of like, he's unflappable, Christian Lundgaard. You know, he's kind of like, you know, it's a bit like, I'm showing my age here, like a Dolph Lundgren in Universal Soldier, you know. So he's so I think he's going to have a good year. I genuinely, I think that the fight is going to come from Arrow McLaren. Over the course of the year, can I see? There's still lots of changes going on at Penske. There's that well-known chap that's come back as well. That slipped under the radar. Talking about politics, that slipped under the radar as well.
What do you think about that, Tim? This is Tim Cindric we are talking about.
The timing of the announcement just after content days. That was that was a surprise.
Very casual, wasn't it? Oh, we've got constructed.
Yeah,
just by the way.
on a page of 3 different names. Yeah, so I can't believe, and obviously I've got to be careful here not to speculate and spread a rumor, but I can't believe that it was just a text to John Duguid and saying, listen, I'm thinking of coming back. Do you want to have a conversation? There must have been.
Because surely the captain's got to have the sign off on that, considering what happened in May. But your guess is as good as ours, I think.
Was he just on gardening leave?
From his own team.
Yeah. So yeah, lots of questions, less answers on that one. But we can't put the questions to anyone because we've got to wait until the next race, really. So, but I just can't. There's still a lot of moving parts there, and success is built on stability and foundation. And if you look at where the stability and the foundation is, it's at Chip Ganassi, it's on the 10 stand, it's at Arrow McLaren. And, you know, yes, the others have strengthened. Yes, you see the moving of Gavin Ward and so forth back to RLL and you know, some of the sort of big names that are moving around. But again, that takes time to build that stability and that platform and that direction. So for me, it has to be Arrow McLaren where the threat comes from.
For this podcast was renowned for bold predictions. We had one excellent one last year, one not so good one. Do you have a bold prediction for the season ahead?
There's a couple of, I won't say a bold prediction, but I'm really interested to see how Kiffin Simpson gets on. And I'm really interested to see how Christian Rasmussen gets on, because both of them had breakthrough years last year. And, you know, that's different ceilings in terms of Kiffin and Rasmussen. Obviously, razzle dazzle. We saw him in victory lane. And we saw him ruffling a few feathers as well. But ECR have really strengthened. They got good investment. They got a really good platform there. And I'm really interested to see where he can take that. And I'm kind of really interested to see where Kippen Simpson can go with it. He's never spent 3 years in any championship that he's ever done. And he actually did well last year. He did a really, really good job. So I know that is probably not where we thought the conversation was going, but I'm really interested to see how they do. And I'm kind of interested to see how Rinus VeeKay does as well, because I'm still not convinced that's going to be a massive step forward for him, because he actually did such a good job with Coyne last year, and a sort of Coyne Hauger tie up with a bit of Andretti in there, that would have been quite good for them.
Can we just have formal confirmation? Is your champion pick Alex Palou, or are you sticking your neck on the line and saying anyone else?
My head says Palou, my heart says Pato.
Okay.
Ooh, which are you going with?
Pato. I'm going to go for Pato, just to be different.
I was going to say Simpson your bold prediction, but I think any prediction that isn't Palou for the championship can be the bold prediction for the year ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Pato.
How about Rookie of the Year?
So Rookie of the Year is an interesting one, because when I first started racing back in the years of hard hats and goggles, I raced with a Brazilian driver, and he was a world karting champion, a guy called Ruben Carapatoso, really nice guy. Now, he's been working with Kaya Collette. I know him really well. I've known him for like 25 years. Now, he basically says this guy can drive. He is genuinely very, very good. And so I'm interested to see how he gets on, because don't forget, Palou never really set the world alight before he went to IndyCar. In terms of Alfonso and everybody that worked with Palou said this guy's a megastar, but he never had the backing, the stability, and whatever it was to really put championships together all the time and be in the right car and the right championship and that kind of stuff. So, it'll be interesting to see how Kaya Collette gets on, because all the money's probably on Mick Schumacher or Hauger. But I think Collette might surprise a few people, especially with Santino there. But Hauger's got to be, for me, I think Hauger's the one.
It's close. It is tight. Close. When we have you on, we'll just move on to some more like personal stuff away from IndyCar. When we have you on, we like to just ask you about your charitable work, the work you do with the police over here as well. So just give you an opportunity to kind of tell the listeners, the viewers, kind of where you're up to with all of that, what you've been up to, and just spread any message that you would like to spread about it.
Yeah, so over the off season, I've been doing various different things. I hosted a gala with the Service Dogs UK team. So Service Dogs UK work across the board. They're a charity that support dogs from the military, from the emergency services, but also dogs that are working in medical circles. So, the obvious guide dogs, that kind of stuff. But there's these wonderful dogs that can predict medical episodes and work with their handlers to keep them safe. And there was actually somebody there that dog has actually saved their life twice overnight by waking the family up and doing various different things. So that was really eye-opening. Always love meeting new people and the animals as well. The police side, I've been doing one or two things. I was out with the response team at Kilburn. The reality of the situation is, and I say this on social media, so I don't mind saying it here, policing is woefully underfunded, and the resource versus demand equation is just way off the scale in terms of what the public's expectations are and what the public knowledge is. You just can't believe how few officers there are going to 999 calls and or parading in certain areas. Like some constabularies won't even put a road traffic car out. There's not even one officer out on road road policing units in some constabularies. So you just cannot believe that. And we don't hear enough about it from politicians. We don't hear enough about it from senior police leaders, that they're trying desperately to reassure everyone. But I think in an era, well, I say an era, we police by consent in the UK. So part of that bond and that relationship is trust. And if you're going to be a victim of crime and the one time that you call the police and they're not going to come, that erodes trust. And when you read the headlines and horror stories and various other things, it further erodes trust. So a lack of transparency and true information from the top further underlines that trust, and then the policing by consent model becomes really, really difficult. So I'm always supporting the good men and women that go out and do remarkable things. You can't believe what they do on a daily basis. So it's always a pleasure to do that and support them. And I was hosting a team police event in London just a few weeks ago, which marries well-being, sport and policing. So 3 pillars that are really close to my heart. So that was great, and still keeping abreast with the Divert team. So working with young kids in and around the criminal justice system in London. I was at HMP Belmarsh recently as well, which is a notorious prison in London. First time I've been in prison. It's not a holiday camp. I can assure you that. What we see on social media, where they're like, "Oh, it's this, it's that." I couldn't believe it when I went there, and that's under-resourced and underfunded, and really they're doing great work to try and rehabilitate people and look after people as well. So yeah, that's basically it in a nutshell, in a sort of 3-minute roundup of the goings on in my sort of charitable world. But I really enjoy it. I've been doing it for a number of years now. I didn't do enough of it when I was younger. You meet amazing people. It's not about taking, it's about giving, and it's a really good space to be involved in.
Oh, hats off.
Yeah, very inspirational men and women out there. But just to end off, Tom, obviously IndyCar is a very small amount of the total sport you do. And as you said earlier, you're covering the Winter Olympics this week. So just tell us a little bit about that.
We've got an IndyCar link.
I know, that's what we're going to say.
Wonderful. It's a wonderful line in there from you, Dan, because obviously Simona has qualified to be at the Olympics. Now, when she told me she was going to try and do this 3 years ago, the route that you have to take to qualify and have your license and be qualified to run a bob down, you have to go to this one venue where all the pilots go to and you're assessed and this and that. It's almost like learning to fly. And so she passed out of that, got her accreditation, and she's been working on it really, really hard. And you see the weight she does at the gym. She's like squatting something ridiculous. I think my back would fold in half if I went anywhere near that weight stack. But she's worked really hard, and she's going to be at the Olympics now. And how inspirational is that? Where I lost my Indy 500 drive, lost my IndyCar drive. You know what? I'm just going to go to the Olympics. Okay, then, that's a very normal thing to do. And she's made it happen. And so fair play to her. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what she gets up to. Martin Haven, who's commentated on motorsport for decades, he's doing the bobsleigh. So he's a really friendly.
And Lee Diffie in the US as well.
So everyone's getting involved. So really looking forward to it. And I love the Winter Olympics. I'm getting paid to watch something that I would essentially watch at home. So I feel really blessed, and never ever when I started this did I think I would ever be involved in an Olympic game. So cannot wait.
Amazing.
Yeah, so just for those of you out there, Simona Di Silvestro will be competing in the women's monobob and a 2-women bobsleigh. So we wish her the best of luck. We're hoping for some IndyCar support. And I was thinking, imagine saying a couple of years ago in 2022 that Lee Diffie would next be commentating Simona Di Silvestro at the 2026 Winter Olympics in the bobsleigh. Weird how these things work, isn't it? Tom, anyway, great to have you on. You're obviously welcome back in 12 months' time, and we're looking forward to seeing your predictions across the course of the year. Best of luck for this campaign. We'll see if you can win it.
We'll win this year.
That is the attitude we like to see. I mean, me not, only 2 champions. We could have a call of 3 champions next year. So looking forward to that. Tom, all the best at the Winter Olympics, and we're definitely looking forward to IndyCar coming back in a month's time.
Thank you.